Ever wonder how the richest Arabs live? We're talking private islands, gold-plated cars, and palaces that make Buckingham look like a cottage. But that's just the start. One Saudi prince dropped $450 million on a painting. Yeah, a single painting. And get this, another guy's got a yacht so big it's got its own missile defense system. But here's the crazy part. Some of these guys started from nothing. Like one dude went from selling kebabs to owning half of Dubai. Another guy turned a small bank into a billion-dollar empire. We're gonna show you how 15 regular people became the most baller Arabs on the planet. Trust me, by the end of this video you'll be thinking, maybe I can be a trillionaire too. From kebabs to billions, the unlikely start. Yo, let's kick this off with a story that'll blow your mind. Picture a guy on the streets of Dubai, grilling up kebabs, hustling just to make ends meet. The smell of spices and sizzling meat fills the air as he works tirelessly, day in and day out. But this ain't just any kebab seller. This is Mohammed Alabar before he hit it big. Now, fast forward a few decades, and Alabar's worth over $1.7 billion. Yeah, you heard that right. Billion with a B. And get this, he owns the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world. That's like going from flipping burgers to owning the Empire State Building, but on steroids. So how'd he do it? It all started back in 1997 when Alabar founded Emaar Properties. He didn't have much, just $15,000 to his name. That's less than what some people spend on a car. But Alabar had something money can't buy: vision. He saw potential in Dubai when most people just saw sand. Emaar's first project? A little neighborhood called Emirates Hills. It was a gamble, but it paid off big time. Rich folks from all over the world started buying up properties like they were going out of style. And Alabar, he just kept building. Today, Emaar's got projects in 36 markets across the Middle East, North Africa, and Asia. We're talking massive shopping malls, luxury hotels, and entire communities. But the crown jewel, that's got to be the Burj Khalifa. At 828 meters tall, it's not just a building, it's a middle finger to the laws of physics. But Alabar didn't stop there. He's got his fingers in all sorts of pies now. E-commerce, tech startups, you name it. He even launched Noon.com, trying to be the Amazon of the Middle East. And let's not forget his chain of high-end restaurants. Guess he never forgot his kebab-selling roots. What's crazy is that Alabar's story ain't unique in the Arab world. There's a whole bunch of guys who went from zero to hero, like Sultan Saud Al-Qasimi, who started out as a radio DJ and now runs a media empire, or Sunny Vaki, who began as a school teacher and ended up with a chain of private schools worth billions. These rags to riches stories are everywhere in the Gulf. It's like the Wild West, but with more oil and less cowboy hats. You got guys striking it rich in real estate, tech, retail, you name it. And the best part, a lot of them are using their wealth to give back, setting up foundations and funding schools. From kebabs to skyscrapers, Alabar proves anyone can make it big. His story's like a real-life Aladdin, minus the magic carpet and talking parrot. It just goes to show that with a bit of hustle, a lot of vision, and maybe a sprinkle of luck, you can go from serving the elite to being the elite. But wait, because we're just getting started with these rags to riches stories. Alabar might have built the world's tallest building, but some of these other Arab billionaires are taking things to a whole new level. We're talking about guys who don't just own buildings, they own entire islands. Guys who don't just have nice cars, they have gold-plated fleets. The kind of wealth that makes your head spin and your wallet feel inadequate. So buckle up, because this ride's about to get wild. We're diving deep into the world of Arab billionaires, where the yachts are bigger than your neighborhood and the watches cost more than your house. Trust me, by the time we're done, you'll be looking at your kebab stand wondering if it could be the start of your billion-dollar empire. Yacht Goals, floating palaces of the Gulf. All right, so we've seen billion-dollar buildings, but what happens when these guys take their wealth offshore? Imagine a floating palace longer than 2 football fields, faster than most speedboats, and worth more than $500 million. And that's just the start of these insane floating mansions. When it comes to yachts, Arab billionaires don't mess around. They're not buying boats, they're investing in floating cities. Take Majid Al Futtaim's yacht Quattro for example. This bad boy is 86 meters long and packed with more luxuries than most 5-star hotels. We're talking a full-on gym, a spa that'll make you forget you're even on water, and a cinema that probably has better picture quality than your local movie theater. But that's not all. This beast also rocks a massive swimming pool and a helipad, cause why bother with a dinghy when you can land your chopper right on deck? But hold up, cause the Quattro L looks like a rubber ducky compared to the granddaddy of all yachts, the Azam. Owned by UAE President Khalifa bin Zayed Al Nahyan, this monster is the largest private yacht in the world. We're talking 180 meters of pure, unadulterated luxury. To put that in perspective, it's longer than some cruise ships, and get this, it cost over $600 million. Yeah, you heard that right. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. But the Azam ain't just about size. This thing can move. It hits speeds of 30 knots, which is insane for a yacht this big. Most yachts this size are lucky if they can do half that. It's like having a floating city that can outrun a speedboat. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but what do you even do with a yacht that big? Well, let me tell you, these floating palaces have everything you could ever want and then some. We're talking underwater viewing rooms, personal submarines, and yeah, even missile defense systems. Because when you're this rich, you gotta protect your investment, right? But all this luxury comes at a price, and I'm not just talking about the initial cost. Maintaining these bad boys is a whole other level of expensive. The Azam, for example, costs around $20 million a year just to keep it running. That's more than most people will make in their entire lifetime, spent every year on a boat. And it's not just about the money. These yachts need a small army just to keep them afloat. We're talking crews of up to 60 people, working around the clock to keep everything shipshape. It's like having a floating hotel where you're the only guest. But for these Arab billionaires, it's all worth it. These yachts ain't just for show, they're mobile luxury mansions. They're a way to take your whole world with you wherever you go. Want to have a business meeting in the middle of the Mediterranean? No problem. Feel like throwing a party for 500 of your closest friends in the Persian Gulf? Easy peasy. These floating palaces are the ultimate flex, a way for these guys to show the world just how loaded they really are. But here's the thing. As insane as these yachts are, they're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how these Arab billionaires live. Speaking of mansions, wait till you hear about their actual houses. Trust me, if you thought these yachts were wild, you ain't seen nothing yet. Palaces in the sky, insane penthouses. Ever wonder what it's like to literally live above the clouds? For these Arab billionaires, that's just Tuesday. We're about to take you inside some of the most insane penthouses on the planet, where the elevators have more floors than most buildings. You think your apartment's nice? These guys are living in a whole different stratosphere. Arab billionaires aren't just buying penthouses, they're snatching up entire floors in the world's tallest skyscrapers. We're talking about places so high up, you need oxygen tanks just to check the mail. Let's start with a bang. In 2020, some mystery Saudi billionaire dropped a cool $240 million on a New York penthouse. Yeah, you heard that right. $240 million for one apartment. That's more than the GDP of some small countries. But here's the kicker. For these guys, that's just pocket change. Over in Dubai, penthouses are going for over $50 million a pop. And we're not talking about your average luxury pads. These places come with private elevators, because who wants to share an elevator with the plebs? And indoor pools, because apparently regular pools are too mainstream when you're living in the clouds. But it gets even crazier. One Saudi prince decided a single penthouse wasn't enough. Nah, this guy bought an entire floor in Kingdom Tower. And get this, the tower isn't even finished yet. That's right, this dude's so loaded he's buying floors in buildings that don't even exist. Talk about a power move. Now you might be wondering, what do these sky palaces actually look like? Well, picture this. You step out of your private elevator into a marble-floored foyer bigger than most people's entire apartments. Floor-to-ceiling windows give you a 360-degree view of the city below, and when you're this high up, everything looks like a toy. Want to take a dip? Just head to your indoor pool, complete with a retractable roof for those nights when you want to swim under the stars. Feeling peckish? Your personal chef is on call 24/7 in a kitchen that would make Gordon Ramsay weep with joy. And let's talk about bedrooms. These ain't your average sleeping quarters. We're talking rooms bigger than houses with walk-in closets the size of boutiques. Bathrooms? More like personal spas, with tubs that could double as small pools, and showers with more jets than a fighter plane. But it's not just about the space. These penthouses come with perks that'll make your head spin. We're talking about personal concierge services, private gyms, and home theaters that put IMAX to shame. Some even have their own helipads, because when you're this rich, traffic is something that happens to other people. The craziest part? For these Arab billionaires, these insane penthouses are often just one of many properties they own. It's like they're playing Monopoly, but with real life. When you're this loaded, your home is literally above everyone else's. But here's the thing, as mind-blowing as these penthouses are, they're just a small part of the billionaire lifestyle. These guys aren't just living in the clouds, they're jetting through them. Because when you're this rich, it's not just about where you live, it's how you get around. And trust me, these guys have taken travel to a whole new level. We're talking about private jets that make Air Force One look like a paper airplane. But that's a story for another day. Sky-high travel, private jets and helicopters. Think you've seen luxury travel? Think again. We're about to show you a world where traffic jams don't exist and your Rolls-Royce comes along for the ride. At 40,000 feet, these Arab billionaires ain't playing when it comes to getting from A to B. When you're rolling in trillions, you don't just fly first class, you own the whole dang plane. These guys have private jets that make Air Force One look like it belongs in economy. We're talking about flying palaces that redefine what it means to travel in style. Take Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, for example. This dude's got a Boeing 747-400 that's been pimped out to the max. We're not just talking about comfy seats and free peanuts here. Nah, this thing's got a throne room. Yeah, you heard that right. A literal throne room in a plane. Because when you're royalty, why sit in a regular chair when you can have a golden throne at 30,000 feet? But hold up, because it gets even crazier. This flying mansion also has a garage. And not just any garage. We're talking about a space specifically designed to hold his Rolls-Royce. Yeah, this prince brings his luxury car with him wherever he goes. Talk about traveling in style. Inside this sky-high palace, you'll find amenities that'll make your jaw drop. We're talking a dining room that could host a state dinner, a conference room for those mid-flight business deals, and a master suite that's probably bigger than your entire apartment. It's like someone took a 5-star hotel, shrunk it down, and stuck wings on it. But Prince Al-Walid ain't the only one living large in the sky. These Arab billionaires are known for dropping insane amounts of cash on their private aircraft. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars for a single jet. That's more than most people will make in 10 lifetimes, spent on something that's basically a really fancy bus with wings. And it's not just about the planes. These guys have taken helicopter travel to a whole new level too. Some of these billionaires have helipads on their yachts and mansions. Imagine waking up in your 50-room palace, stepping onto your private helipad and being whisked away to your waiting 747. For these guys, that's just a regular Tuesday morning commute. But running these flying mansions ain't cheap or easy. These billionaires employ whole teams of specialized crews to keep their aircraft in top shape. We're talking about squads of engineers and pilots dedicated to each plane or chopper. It's like having a pit crew for your car, except the car is a $400 million jet. When you're this loaded, traffic is something that happens to other people. Why deal with rush hour when you can soar above it all in your private jet? Need to pop over to Paris for lunch? No problem. Fancy a quick shopping trip in New York? Just fire up the old 747. But here's the kicker. As insane as these private jets and helicopters are, they're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how these Arab billionaires get around. Because when you're not flying high, you need something equally baller to cruise around in on the ground. These planes and choppers are just the start of their insane vehicle collections. We're talking about car garages that look more like automotive museums, but that's a whole other story. Let's just say, when these guys hit the road, they do it in style that'll make your head spin. Buckle up, cause things are about to get even wilder. Wheels of fortune, car collections worth millions. Remember when we said those car garages look like automotive museums? Well, that was an understatement. These Arab billionaires ain't just collecting cars, they're hoarding them like they're going out of style. And we're not talking about your average Joe's ride. We're talking gold-plated, diamond-encrusted machines that'll make your eyes pop. Let's start with the big daddy of car collectors, Hassan al-Bolkiah, the Sultan of Brunei. This guy's got a car collection that'll blow your mind. We're talking over 7,000 vehicles worth a whopping $5 billion. Yeah, you heard that right. $5 billion. That's more than the GDP of some small countries, all tied up in cars. But it ain't just about the numbers. The Sultan's collection is like a who's who of luxury rides. He's got around 600 Rolls Royces. That's not a typo. 600 of the most luxurious cars ever made just sitting in his garage. And if that wasn't enough, he's also got 400 Ferraris. Most people dream of owning one Ferrari in their lifetime. This dude's got enough to give one to every person in a small town. But the Sultan doesn't stop at off-the-lot models. Nah, he's big into custom-made cars too. We're talking about one-of-a-kind vehicles that you can't find anywhere else in the world. These aren't just cars, they're rolling works of art. Now you might think the Sultan's collection is as crazy as it gets, but hold on to your hats, because we're just getting started. Some of these Arab billionaires take car customization to a whole new level. We're talking about gold-plated Lamborghinis cruising down the streets of Dubai. Imagine seeing that in your rear-view mirror. But why stop at gold when you can add some sparkle? Some of these guys have diamond-encrusted Bentleys. Yeah, you read that right. Diamonds on a car. It's like they took Rihanna's "Shine Bright Like a Diamond" a little too literally. These collections ain't just about showing off though. They're serious business. These billionaires keep their rides in climate-controlled garages that look more like luxury showrooms than parking lots. They've got teams of mechanics and specialists using cutting-edge tech to keep every car in tip-top shape. It's not just about preserving value either. These collections are a passion, a way to own a piece of automotive history. From vintage classics to the latest hypercars, these garages have it all. It's like having a time machine made of horsepower and chrome. But here's the kicker. For some of these guys, cars are just the start. They collect everything from watches to wine, from art to islands. It's like they're playing real-life Monopoly, but instead of little plastic houses, they're collecting full-size mansions and supercars. When you're this rich, your garage isn't just a place to park your car. It's a museum, a showroom, and a flex all rolled into one. These collections are worth more than most people will see in 100 lifetimes, all lined up nice and pretty behind gold-plated garage doors. Art for billions. Record-breaking purchases. Remember that Da Vinci we mentioned? Well, it turns out it's not just any old painting, it's literally the most expensive artwork ever sold. And get this, it's got a pretty wild story behind it. From lost masterpiece to record-breaking sale, this painting's journey is crazier than a billionaire's shopping spree. So picture this, it's 2017 and the art world is buzzing. A painting by Leonardo da Vinci, one of only 20 known to exist, is up for auction. It's called Salvator Mundi, showing Christ as the light of the world. Now most folks would be happy to see this masterpiece in a museum, but not Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Nah, he wanted it all for himself. When the hammer fell, jaws hit the floor. The price? A mind-blowing $450 million. Yeah, you heard that right. $450 million for a single painting. That's more than the GDP of some small countries, all spent on a piece of canvas smaller than your average flat-screen TV. But here's the kicker. The Salvator Mundi isn't even on public display. It's like buying the Mona Lisa and keeping it in your bedroom. Some folks are saying it's chilling on MBS's yacht. Others reckon it's locked away in a vault somewhere. Either way, it's not hanging in a museum where people can actually see it. Now, you might think dropping $500 million on a painting is a one-off thing. But for these Arab billionaires, it's just another Tuesday. Take Qatar's royal family, for example. They decided they needed Paul Cézanne's The Card Players in their life. The price tag? A cool $250 million. That's right, $250 million for a painting of some dudes playing cards. But for Qatar, it ain't just about having pretty pictures on the wall. Nah, this is all part of a bigger plan. They're trying to turn their country into a cultural hotspot, a place where people come from all over to see amazing art. It's like they're building their own Louvre in the desert. These crazy purchases are shaking up the art world big time. It's not just about who's got the deepest pockets anymore. These Arab billionaires are rewriting the rules of the game. They're not just buying art, they're buying prestige, cultural clout, and a place in history. But all this art buying is causing some serious drama. People are asking questions like, should private collectors be allowed to hoard masterpieces? And what happens to cultural heritage when it's all locked away in some billionaire's penthouse? It's like the art world's version of a soap opera, with billion-dollar paintings instead of evil twins. For these guys, art ain't just pretty pictures to hang on the wall. It's a flex, a way to show the world just how loaded they really are. It's like they're playing a game of who can spend the most on a single object, and the rest of us are just spectators. But as wild as these art purchases are, they're just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to how these Arab billionaires spend their cash. Because when you've got more money than you know what to do with, why stop at paintings? These guys are decking themselves out in bling that'll make your eyes water. We're talking about watches worth more than mansions and phones covered in so many diamonds, they're practically glowing. But that's a whole other story, and trust me, it's even more insane than these record-breaking art purchases. Bling Empire, jewelry that costs more than small countries. Imagine owning a phone that's worth more than most people's lifetime earnings. For some Arab billionaires, that's just Tuesday. But here's the real kicker. These aren't just fancy toys. They're walking, talking investment portfolios that make Wall Street look like child's play. You think your watch is expensive? These guys wear GDPs on their wrists. We're not talking about your average Rolex or even a fancy Patek Philippe. Nah, we're in a whole different league here. Take the Graph hallucination watch, for example. This bad boy is worth a mind-blowing $55 million. Yeah, you heard that right. $55 million for a timepiece. That's more than most people will make in 10 lifetimes, all wrapped up in something that fits on your wrist. So what makes this watch so special? Well, it's not just about telling time. The Graph hallucination is decked out with 110 carats of colored diamonds. We're talking about a rainbow of rare, perfectly cut stones that'll make your eyes water. It's like wearing the crown jewels, but more portable. An unnamed Saudi billionaire snatched up this gem, probably just to check the time while he's waiting for his gold-plated jet to fuel up. But here's the thing. For these guys, a $55 million watch isn't even the craziest thing in their jewelry box. Some of these Arab billionaires have taken bling to a whole new level. We're talking about diamond-encrusted phones that are worth millions. Imagine dropping your phone and not just cracking the screen, but losing a small fortune in precious stones. These aren't just communication devices, they're portable trust funds. But it's not just about phones and watches. These guys are decking themselves out in jewelry that would make a pirate's treasure chest look like a kid's piggy bank. We're talking about necklaces with emeralds the size of golf balls, rings with rubies that look like they were plucked from a dragon's lair, and enough gold to make King Midas jealous. And it's not just the men getting in on the action. The women in these billionaire families are rocking bling that'll make your head spin. Tiaras that cost more than mansions, earrings worth more than yachts, and bracelets that could buy a small island. It's like they're walking around with the GDP of a small country dangling from their ears. But here's the thing. For these Arab billionaires, this insane jewelry isn't just about showing off. It's an investment strategy. When you're this loaded, you don't just buy stocks and bonds. You invest in rare gems and precious metals. It's like having a Swiss bank account, but way more sparkly. These pieces aren't just sitting in a vault either. Nah, these billionaires are wearing their investments out and about. It's like if Warren Buffett decided to wear his stock portfolio as a necklace. When you're this rich, your accessories cost more than most people's houses. But it's not all about showing off. Some of these guys are using their love of bling for good. They're funding jewelry design schools, supporting local artisans, and even using their collections to raise money for charity. It's like they're Robin Hood, but instead of stealing from the rich, they're just bedazzling everything in sight. Philanthropy on steroids, billion-dollar donations. Forget gold-plated yachts. The real flex, giving away $32 billion like it's pocket change. That's exactly what one Saudi prince did, and he's not even the craziest philanthropist on this list. These Arab billionaires are writing checks that make Oprah's giveaways look like chump change. You might think these guys are all about buying islands and diamond-encrusted everything, but some of them are dropping more cash on charity than most of us will ever see in our bank accounts. We're talking billions here, and it ain't just for show. Take Saudi Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, for example. This dude looked at his $32 billion fortune and said, "You know what? I'm gonna give it all away." That's right, all of it. He's not just tossing a few mil to look good for the cameras. Nah, he's going all in, funding universities, disaster relief, and women's rights. It's like he woke up one day and decided to play real-life Superman. But instead of flying around in a cape, he's writing checks that could solve world hunger. But Al-Walid ain't the only one playing Santa Claus with $1 billion budget. Over in the UAE, Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum was like, "Hold my non-alcoholic beer." This guy launched a $10 billion education foundation. That's billion with a B. He's not just building schools, he's trying to reshape the entire education system in the Middle East. It's like he's playing Sim City, but with real lives and real money. These mega donations ain't just random acts of kindness either. These billionaires are playing chess while the rest of us are playing checkers. They're using their wealth to shape the future of the entire Middle East. We're talking about long-term impact here, focusing on critical issues like health, education, and women's empowerment. And get this, a lot of these guys are setting up foundations that'll keep giving long after they're gone. It's like they're building their own Gates Foundation, but with a Middle Eastern twist. They're not just throwing money at problems, they're creating systems to solve them for generations to come. But here's the real kicker. This trend is spreading. More and more Arab billionaires are jumping on the philanthropy bandwagon. It's like they all got together and said, "Hey, maybe we should use some of this cash to actually help people." And they're not just writing checks and calling it a day. Nah, they're getting involved, using their business smarts to make sure their donations actually make a difference. Some folks might say it's just a PR move, a way to look good while still living the high life. But when you're giving away billions, does it really matter why you're doing it? These donations are changing lives, building schools, funding hospitals, and giving people opportunities they never would have had otherwise. It's like these billionaires woke up and realized they could be superheroes without the spandex. They're using their wealth as a superpower, reshaping entire regions with the stroke of a pen. It's philanthropy on steroids, and it's changing the game in ways we're only starting to understand. But for some of these guys, giving away billions to charity is just the warm-up. They're looking to the future, and we're not just talking about next year's models of gold-plated jets. Nah, these dudes are thinking way bigger. They're pouring billions into tech startups trying to turn their oil money into the next Silicon Valley, but that's a whole other story, and trust me, it's even crazier than these billion-dollar donations. Tech titans investing in the future. Remember when everyone thought Dubai was just about fancy buildings and man-made islands? Well, these Arab billionaires are flipping the script. They're taking their oil money and betting big on the future. We're talking AI, robotics, and stuff straight out of sci-fi movies. But here's the kicker, they might actually pull it off. These guys ain't just buying fancy toys anymore. Nah, they're straight up building the future. Arab billionaires are pouring billions into tech startups like they're planting magic beans. Except these beans are sprouting into Silicon Valley-style empires. Take Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund, for example. These dudes dropped a mind-blowing $45 billion into SoftBank's Vision Fund. That's not pocket change, that's reshaped the entire tech landscape money. They're betting big on AI, robotics, and electric cars. It's like they looked at Elon Musk and said, "Hold my non-alcoholic beer." But it ain't just about throwing cash around. These billionaires are getting their hands dirty, diving deep into the tech world. They're not just investors, they're becoming full-on tech titans themselves. It's like watching oil sheikhs transform into Steve Jobs right before our eyes. UAE's Mohammed Al-Abar, the guy who built the world's tallest building, decided that wasn't enough. So what did he do? He launched Noon.com, aiming to be the Amazon of the Middle East. This dude went from real estate to e-commerce faster than you can say free 2-day shipping. It's like he woke up one day and decided to take on Jeff Bezos. But here's the real kicker. These investments ain't just about making more money. These billionaires are trying to future-proof their economies. They know the oil won't last forever, so they're building tech empires that'll keep the cash flowing long after the last drop of crude is pumped. And it's not just about funding existing companies. These guys are setting up their own tech hubs, trying to create their own Silicon Valleys in the desert. They're building smart cities, funding AI research, and pouring money into renewable energy. It's like they're playing Sim City, but with real billions and real cities. The craziest part, they might actually pull it off. With the kind of cash they're throwing around and the connections they've got, these Arab billionaires could seriously reshape the global tech landscape. We might be looking at a future where the next Google or Facebook comes out of Dubai or Riyadh instead of Silicon Valley. But some of these dudes are thinking even bigger than that. They're not content with just dominating the tech scene here on Earth. Nah, they're setting their sights on the stars. We're talking about Arab billionaires investing in space tech, trying to conquer the final frontier. These guys are turning their oil money into tech empires, and they're doing it at a speed that'll make your head spin. It's like watching a real-life version of Who Wants to Be a Trillionaire, but instead of answering trivia questions, they're reshaping entire industries. Space race, the final frontier of luxury. Forget private islands, that's so last century. The new status symbol for Arab billionaires, your very own piece of the cosmos. But here's the kicker. They're not just buying tickets to space, they're reshaping the entire space industry, and it's happening faster than you can say, "Houston, we have liftoff." These Arab billionaires have their sights set on the stars, and they're not just dreaming, they're making it happen. Take the UAE government, for example. They're teaming up with none other than Richard Branson himself to build a spaceport in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, you heard that right. A spaceport in the desert. It's like they looked at Star Wars and said, "Tatooine? Hold my non-alcoholic beer." But this ain't just some vanity project. They're planning space tourism flights for the ultra-rich. Imagine dropping a few million to float around in zero gravity and see the Earth from space. For these billionaires, it's just another Tuesday adventure. And the UAE isn't stopping there. They've got some seriously ambitious plans for space exploration. Remember the Hope probe? That little guy successfully entered Mars's orbit in February 2021. It's a huge win for the Arab world in space exploration. They're not just playing the game, they're changing it. But here's where it gets really wild. Saudi Arabia is going all in on the space race. They're not just dipping their toes in the cosmic waters, they're diving in head first. We're talking billions invested in Virgin Galactic and other space ventures. It's like they're trying to build their own Starfleet, but with more gold and less Klingons. These investments aren't just about bragging rights, though. The UAE's space strategy includes partnerships with various international space agencies. They're not just trying to get to space, they're trying to become a major player in the global space industry. It's like they're playing 3D chess while the rest of us are still figuring out checkers. And get this, all these space investments are expected to do more than just send rich folks on joyrides to the stars. They're talking about stimulating economic growth, creating high-tech jobs, and positioning these countries as leaders in the global space industry. It's like they're building a Silicon Valley in the sky. The UAE is even using its space ambitions to attract international tourists and investors. They're betting that people will pay big bucks to watch rockets launch from the desert. And you know what? They're probably right. It's the ultimate Instagram flex. Just chilling in Abu Dhabi watching a spaceship take off. No big deal. For these Arab billionaires, a vacation to space is the ultimate flex. It's not enough to own a private island or a gold-plated jet. Nah, they want to be able to point at the night sky and say, "See that star? I've been there." It's like the world's most expensive game of I Spy. But here's the thing. While these guys are dreaming of space stations and Martian colonies, they're not forgetting about Earth. In fact, they're changing the very face of their cities. They're building skyscrapers that make the Empire State Building look like a Lego tower and designing futuristic buildings that look like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie. Skyscraper dreams, reshaping city skylines. From space dreams to skyscraper schemes, Arab billionaires are playing a game of anything you can do, I can do bigger. But here's the kicker. They're not just building tall, they're building the future. And it looks like something straight out of sci-fi. These guys don't just own buildings, they own the sky. And they're not content with just touching the clouds. They want to pierce right through them. Arab billionaires are building some of the tallest structures on Earth, and they're doing it with a flair that makes New York's skyline look like a kid's Lego set. Take the Jeddah Tower in Saudi Arabia. This bad boy is set to be the world's first 1 km tall building. Yeah, you heard that right. 1 kilometer straight up. It's like they looked at the Burj Khalifa and said, "Cute, but watch this. This monster is gonna cost a whopping $20 billion. That's more than the GDP of some small countries, all poured into one insane tower." But it ain't just about being tall. The Jeddah Tower is gonna have the world's highest observatory. Imagine looking down on the world from a kilometer up. It's like being in a plane, but without the tiny pretzels and crying babies. This thing is gonna redefine what we think is possible in architecture. But here's the thing, these Arab billionaires ain't just about height, they're all about style too. Take Dubai's Museum of the Future. This bad boy cost $136 million and looks like something straight out of a sci-fi movie. It's like they hired the set designers from Blade Runner and said, "Go nuts." This museum ain't just a pretty face either. It's packed with cutting-edge tech, showcasing innovations that'll shape our world in the coming decades. It's like stepping into a time machine, but instead of going back to the past, you're leaping into the future. These projects ain't just vanity builds either. They're changing entire skylines, reshaping cities, and redefining what urban living looks like. It's like these billionaires woke up one day and decided to play Sim City with real money and real cities. But it ain't all smooth sailing. Building these mega structures comes with mega challenges. We're talking regulatory hurdles that'd make an Olympic hurdler sweat, environmental concerns that keep Greenpeace up at night, and engineering problems that'd give Einstein a headache. It's like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube, but the cube is a kilometer tall and costs billions.